Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Ryan, your self-love life coach. And this is my contribution to the YouTube community. I like to create content. I definitely appreciate YouTube content. And I figure it's good for me to pitch my 2 cents into the mix and share with you what I am learning and what I have learned and ways that I have healed to help you to heal. Today, we're going to talk about 30 ways toxic shame harms you. 30 ways toxic shame impacts your life in a negative way, harms your connections, and keeps you small. Let me start by saying that I'm not doing this for fame or fortune. I have a job. I am a real estate broker. And I've been in every magazine in the world, every newspaper. I am already well known. And if I really felt like running and becoming a well known self-love person, there is no doubt in my mind that I could do that. That's not why I'm here. I'm literally here because my heart is here. This is where my heart is. This is my hobby. I do this as a labor of love. It gives me so much joy to figure stuff out and then share it, learn for myself, and then have other people resonate. And really realizing that the chances are good that. So today we're going to look at toxic shame, 30 ways it impacts your life in a negative way. And no, it's not fun per se to look at toxic shame. But once I find a bubble and I get it and I can massage that emotional issue, I know on the other side of that is such freedom and such joy. And I know it's worth it to look at these negative things and to really begin to process and work through them so that you can become the best person that you can be and live a life that is a little bit more free of pain and confusion. So today I'm going to talk to you, and I'm working on a series. I have had an epiphany. I've had some tremendous growth, and I'm still working it through. I'm drawing diagrams and really figuring it out. And I like to break things down in little chunks. And so this is kind of the starter chunk, but I have some big stuff coming for you in podcast form. It's so good. I really want to do a video, but I don't want my image to be associated. I don't want anybody to be confused out there because I'm so many things to so many people, and I just kind of want to keep my image on the down low when it comes to my coaching in this area or my sharing. It's just sharing. It's not coaching. It's just sharing, what I've gone through and what I've learned. So this is for people, and I'll just go over real briefly. A toxic shame is created in childhood. It is a traumatic, it's from trauma. Toxic shame is birthed in trauma. So my definition of toxic shame is that shame that comes to you when a parent or caregiver acts shamelessly. The child takes on the blame. The child idolizes the parent and takes on the blame, and instead of really holding the parent accountable because they're just not capable, a child from age 0 to 7, because that's when you're being programmed, that's when you're developing, that's when your identity is developing. So toxic shame is that shame that was inoculated into you, basically, when you were age 0 to 7. It's not from your latest narcissistic relationship. If you're dealing with that, that's something that needs to be dealt with. But this is a deeper level thought process. And what I've discovered is that we're repeating patterns that occurred from age 0 to 7 over and over throughout our adult lives if we do not resolve the issues. So this is a podcast to help you to think about how to resolve these issues. And the first thing I want to talk about is toxic shame and how it shows up in your life today. So if you were traumatized, if you were abused, if you were neglected, if you were physically abused, whatever way you were abused as a child, it creates trauma. And the child's brain is incapable of making sense of what's going on. And instead of seeing the parent as the abuser, as the wrong one, the child takes it on for themselves. That's because the child's brain is not yet developed. The child must survive. And in order to survive and control the situation, so to speak, the child takes on the shame that the parent should have. Now, I first started learning about shame and boundaries and whatnot years ago in my 20s from Pia Melody. She was the only person talking about it. And she's really the one that came up with the idea of carried shame. When a parent is behaving shamelessly, they're not having shame, they're not connected with what they're doing, they're not taking responsibility, and they are behaving shamelessly. And I believe that the child receives that shame. The child receives the shame. The child receives the shame, and you grow up with it. It never leaves. It becomes a part of who you are. It shapes your identity. It shapes everything until it is dealt with. So a child idolizes the parent in order to survive. That's how they get moving. That's how they survive. And so in idolizing the parent, they put themselves down and see themselves as less than and see themselves as worthless, no good, and all the bad things. That is what toxic shame is. It is a felt presence of worthlessness, incapableness, and it shows up in a myriad ways, whether it be you can't get a job, you can't keep a job. It's all of the 12 schemas that I discuss in some of my previous videos or audios about, your negative core beliefs. This is the root cause of negative core beliefs. Because once a child is taught at a young age that they're worthless and no good, and they've taken on that shame of the parent, it's generational curses, generational shame that's being passed down. Once it's passed down, that child grows up, doesn't fulfill the milestones they needed to fulfill, doesn't get the sense of identity that they need to function properly in life, and feels inadequate, worthless. And it just depends on many factors, like how badly you were traumatized, how sensitive you are. There's different factors, whether or not there was someone in your life who rescued you in a certain way. I mean, there's varying levels. And so toxic shame lives with you for the rest of your life. And in my deepest, darkest healing process, which I have already gone through, you have to go through it once. You have to go through that tunnel of, oh my gosh, it's horrible. But I've already gone through it. So healing is like a spiral, and you heal on a spiral, and you come back to certain themes again and again, and each time you come back with greater insight and greater understanding of what's going on. When you are inoculated with toxic shame as a child because you have a traumatic experience or experiences, you are messed up. You're going to have a difficult time in the world in many, many ways, and you're going to carry this shame with you, and it's going to show up in your life. And there's many ways it's going to show up. And the best thing you can do about toxic shame is to recognize it, call it for what it is, have awareness, be willing to recognize it, be willing to face it, be willing to accept that aspect of yourself, being willing to reparent the inner child in relation to the shame, and then be willing to accept it and ameliorate it and turn it into love and joy and light and beauty. That is the healing process. So it's a very complicated issue if you have toxic shame. It will require that you roll up your sleeves and do the work. Doing the work is work. It's like a job. It's not always fun, but it's always pays off. And you will reap the rewards of facing your shame and facing your pain. So it's important to look at the ways that we're interacting today and really notice patterns. That's one thing that my healing process has taught me, to notice patterns. And there's so much involved in healing that it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. So you have to take one little bitty piece at a time. And it's like a puzzle. And if you can figure out this piece, then the next piece becomes easier. If you can figure out what shame does to you, then you can figure out when you're operating in these ways. And take your time with each of these items. This is a lot, and it's very helpful, and it will change your life. It's changing mine. And so listen here, listen good. Also, when the person is ready, the teacher appears. I was thinking about these things and it was coming to light for me. And then I saw a video and I watched a video. It just popped on my screen. And it was a psychologist, and she was talking about some of the things I'm talking about. And she brought this up and sparked me to expand upon the list. I can't tell you which ones she said. I think I will post her video because it was so good in the community section of our channel. Okay. So make sure you're looking at the community section because I'm going to be posting some things there and it may be helpful to you. Okay. Even if there's just one person listening to me today, you're my person. You're who I'm here for. I'm not here for millions of people, thousands of people, hundreds of people. If it's just 2, if it's just 5, if it's 10, I don't care. I don't care how many views I get. This is about real work. And I love whenever I put my work out into the world, it does get integrated into society and I can watch it come back to me. And it's a beautiful thing when you put something out there and you're healing and you are taking all the information and working on yourself. You come up with original, creative, unique ways to express the healing process that helps other people and that other people use. And I don't have to get credit for it. And I try to give credit where credit is due. If somebody helps me and I use what they've taught me, I try to always, say, this is who taught me this. But anyway, okay, so when you have an experience of toxic shame, in the past, I've experienced it as a tangible feeling. It could be a taste in the mouth. It's just this heavy experience. But I'm not really going to talk about that today, but I'm going to talk about how it shows up in your behavior patterns. So let's say here's how it came up for me. I started noticing that I get offended, that people were easily able to hurt me. I'm going to do a whole nother video on this, so I'm not going to go into it. But I noticed that people would hurt me. And I was like, and these are some of the things that it caused me to do. The first thing in an engagement, when you're talking to someone and they say something hurtful, okay? One of the things, toxic shame, number one, I would say is rumination. Toxic shame causes you to ruminate about what someone said to you, about what someone wants from you. It really causes you to not have a firm grasp and a secure grasp on your connections. It causes you to wonder. It causes you to ruminate. Okay? And I like to think of it this rumination process as a pinball machine where someone, I don't know if y'all remember the days when we had pinball, but, pinball wizard, you have the pinball and it goes and it boing, 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 boing. And then you get some points. And so rumination to me is like a pinball machine, and someone says something that's harmful or hurts me, whether they meant to or not, is not the problem. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about anyone, narcissist, non-narcissist, just whatever. And it pings my system. It pings my toxic shame. It can ping your toxic shame. Because, and I didn't even know this was here. And I found out, I was like, oh. And since I've done so much shame work, when I recognize it, it's beautiful because I can fix that. I can heal. I can heal from that. So I noticed that when someone would say something rude, I would ruminate, okay? And you ruminate and it ping, 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 and you don't know why, and you can't get it out of your system. And then I figured out, okay, that's toxic shame. Toxic shame can cause you to ruminate about things. So ask yourself when you're ruminating, instead of ruminating and making it about the other person, pull it in and see if it's not tied to your original shame trauma. And ask yourself, because you can ruminate all day long and you can do the things I'm about to discuss, but it doesn't heal the original wound. It will just repeat and repeat and repeat. But if you can call a spade, and when you're in rumination, begin to ask questions and ask if this rumination is related not to the substitute person that just hurt you. Are you dealing with a deeper wound, a deeper sense of inadequacy, a deeper sense of confusion, a deeper sense of I'm not worth anything, I was abused, and I took on that shame? But that's not my shame. It wasn't your fault. That's huge. Humongous. Just knowing that when you're in the middle of a rumination and you can catch yourself and go, what is this? Is this actually, let me put aside the fact that someone said something hurtful to me, and let me just see if there's anything behind it. This rumination that I'm having. And when you're able to do that, then you're able to resolve it. It's so awesome. Okay. So when you are pinged, when your toxic shame is pinged in a relationship, you are desperate to feel good again. You have a feeling of desperation because toxic shame is all external, because it's not truth. It's not who you are. It's not real. It's not secure. It's a lie. It's a lie that you have swallowed. And when your toxic shame is pinged, you are desperate to feel good again. So that's number 2, desperate to feel good again. Number 3 is you reach out to resolve it. So you may reach out and you may counterattack. Number 3, toxic shame causes you to counterattack because you have no other productive or beneficial way to protect yourself from these feelings, these very negative emotions. So you begin writing checks to someone, sending mail to someone that's not their mail. This is your own toxic shame, and this person just said a little bitty thing that bothered you, and now you're counterattacking. You are, number 4, feeling like a victim. That's huge. We're going to do a whole podcast on that one. Feeling like a victim. You may reach out to others. You may say, I can't believe what he did to me. You may go watch videos on narcissism, and that may calm you and help you to feel better because you know it's not you. But it's good to know about these negative behavior traits of toxic people, but it becomes really an outlet for you to project your toxic shame Whereas if you were to face this and deal with it inside, you would stop being attracted to these people that are doing this, and you would be able to handle it better. And that's what we're talking about today. Toxic shame may cause you to go into perfectionism. People who are perfectionists are trying to overcome feelings of inadequacy and imperfections because they don't understand that we are all perfectly imperfect. And they have this internal introject, which is the parent, the traumatizing parent, that is telling them you're not good enough. And so they're trying to salve that voice. Instead of dealing with the voice and healing, they become perfectionists. It can also cause you to, that's number 5, perfectionist, for those of you who like numbers. It can also cause you to shrink, to isolate. It can cause you to be quiet because someone said something hurtful and, well, let's start with it cause you to be confused. Like one hurtful word can just cause you to be like, okay? You're just like jibber jabber because it knocks you off your rocker because you're not living in today. You are living in the toxic shame of age 0 to 7. You're not living in today. And the toxic shame is blocking clarity. And so toxic shame will cause you to feel confused. And that starts rumination. It's like a big old huge cycle. You know, you're confused. Like, what did they mean to say that? Why would they say that? Am I not good at, you have to ask, why is this bothering me? This person talked about my clothing. Why am I so bothered by what this person just said, keeps saying about my clothing? Do I need to dress differently? Ruminating. Does she, am I, what do I need to do? It can also cause you, I have so much to say, it can also cause you to change your behavior and do things you would have never done and do things that are not in line with your truth and your purpose and your value system, whatever it is. Like it can cause you to go buy clothes that you don't need because someone said something and it triggered your toxic shame. And suddenly, you just put money on the credit card you didn't need to put. And so it negates your life because the toxic shame is reacting, not the true, secure, whole truth that you are, which is the truth of who you are. All right, so the next one is it can cause you to cut off relationships with people because you just can't tolerate the experience of the toxic shame that is within you. So, and it's really easy to blame other people. That person did this, and you can't resolve it. You can't reconcile it. You can't get over it. You're ruminating. You're feeling imperfect. You're feeling vulnerable. And this is not the kind of vulnerable that leads to intimacy. This is a vulnerable that your toxic shame is just hanging out. And it's like a slimy coat. And it's just, ugh. And so this toxic shame can cause you to cut relations with people. And because you can't handle it. Because you can't set a boundary. You can't handle it. Now, some people need to be cut off. And a lot of times when you have this toxic shame all over you, around you, inside of you, triggered easily, fight or flight, you're going to attract people that will take advantage of that, your lack of security in yourself. So you're going to attract people that literally are going to do all the things that cause you to do all the things. So this is about getting out of that space so that you can be free to have real connections, love yourself, love God. So it can cause you to cut off relationships, leave, get out, and isolate. So it can cause you to be isolated. And that's not healthy, because if everything hurts you so deeply, if every single thing that people say or do to you can actually get to the core of your being, then you're going to have a very difficult time being around anyone. And so that's what toxic shame does. It's a direct route to your innermost insecurities that aren't your fault, that were placed there. It's not real shame. Real shame is whenever you do something bad, like you said something bad about someone in public and you're like, oh, I feel so bad for that. That's healthy. That's the kind of shame we need. That keeps us in line. But toxic shame is like this lie that someone else passed on to you because they didn't deal with their stuff. And anything negative that happened to you, any way that you were neglected, you received your own little dose of toxic shame because you can't let that other person, when you're a kid, be wrong. That other person is right and you're always wrong. The brain is too small to handle gray areas. The brain does not have the resources that you have today. Here in 2023, when I'm speaking this, the brain, when you were, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, whatever, it was not mature enough. It wasn't ready. It didn't have the capacity. It didn't have the resources that you have today. And it took all these lies and swallowed it. And today you are operating from that shame core, and it is a rough existence. It's painful. It's like a life prison in this emotional prison of shame. It can cause you to be confused. It can cause you to be people-pleasing. I don't know what number I'm on. Let's just say 10. It can cause you to people-please. This is the number one reason that people people-please, because that's the way of coping. You're like, okay, how am I going to operate in this world? I will make everybody happy, because that's how you were taught to do it. Because you're bad. You're a bad person. So you have to go overboard. You have to do things that will make up for the fact that you're less than and that you have this shame. And it keeps you from experiencing that shame. Everything you're doing is to keep you from experiencing the shame. This is the shame that you're carrying. It's in your body. It doesn't leave until you allow it to, until you release it and embrace it. I don't like cutting things off. I like releasing and embracing the inner child and letting yourself know that it's okay. It's not your fault. It wasn't your fault. You were not neglected because you were not good enough. You were neglected because a caregiver took a tiny baby and didn't know how to handle it. So today you're people-pleasing to try to make up for that. Toxic shame, it puts you in a tailspin when you get triggered, when someone says something mean to you, and it can keep you from doing things. It can keep you from setting boundaries. It can keep you from asserting yourself. For one thing, you're not operating in real time, because toxic shame is a layer of disconnection. So you get knocked back, and internally you begin to go, and you have so much going on inside with the pain that you can't even address the person directly and say, oh, I love what I wear. This is how I express myself. And, and say things that are assertive and beautiful. Instead, you say things that are cowering and people-pleasing. And in your heart, that's not the way to be, but you do it because it's all you know. You're coping with this gigantic gremlin of shame all over you. That's not yours, that you don't deserve. It wasn't your fault. Toxic shame makes you unable to discern what is coming at you. It makes you unable to discern whether or not you need to set a boundary. It makes you unable to discern whose stuff this is. Like if someone's saying something to you that is harmful and hurtful, it makes you believe it's you, or it can cause you to make you believe it's you at first. Or you'll have a moment where you're just like, what? I don't know. I need to, It knocks you out constantly. And so you can't discern who's good to be around, who's not good to be around. What should I say in this situation? You cannot operate in real time if you're constantly reacting to your own internal toxic shame when other people are acting upon you. You can't externalize it. You can't see, okay, Susie Q has her own issues and she's operating from her toxic shame. And you can't see any of that. You can't see projections of others. You can't see where you need to rise above. You can't discern things. It takes away your life force. It takes away your ability to connect. It takes away your ability to have intimacy. It causes you to make decisions based upon this shame rather than decisions based upon what's best for you, truth, and beauty. It can keep you in a one down position, and it can also keep you searching for those mirrored programs, those relationships that match the program that you originally received the toxic shame through. Okay. Toxic shame is a barrier to your identity and self-protection. It keeps you from protecting yourself because you don't even know. Because all you know is you feel like crap. And if you've done a lot of shame work, the crap may be so light. You know, for me, I've done a ton of shame work, so I've done like the deep stuff that's real painful, but there's a lot of remnant shame hanging around. There's shame that you don't even realize is shame because it doesn't hurt that bad, but just enough to keep you stuck in patterns that are counterproductive for your progress. So toxic shame can cause you to change your behavior, do things that will please other people, or do things like, it can cause you to do hundreds of things. You guys can add to this list. You're desperate to feel good again after the toxic shame. So it can cause you to go back to the betrayal source. If you look at some of my earlier videos, I talk about the betrayal source. It can keep you quiet. It can make you cold. It can cause you to be reserved. Shame can shut people down and cause them to be cold. It can shut down your empathy. And from a people pleaser perspective, what we call empathy is a lot of times it's this shame that's operating. A master empath could really just be operating from pure shame and over responsibility. Shame, toxic shame today keeps you from your power, keeps you from being grounded. And so anytime you find yourself in patterns or you're feeling hurt from something that someone else said, and you're overthinking it and just like can't get it out of your mind, or maybe you're addicted to a person and you don't know why. Well, I'm figuring out it's shame. It's shame. And so to deal with the problem, it is to deal with the shame within and face it. The most amazing part of facing it is catching it in real time. Another amazing part of facing it is being aware of it, catching it, and then you can begin to develop skills, or, feeling it. You have to feel it. You have to allow it to be. And you have to feel it for the original source rather than being mad at Susie Q. Being mad at Susie Q for hurting you and triggering your toxic shame is never going to resolve the problem. I'm repeating myself. It will only repeat itself. But if you begin to say, okay, Susie Q just hurt me. How do I feel? Oh, this is toxic shame. Oh, I'm not going to change my behavior. I'm not going to people please. I'm not going to cower. I'm not going to become cold. I'm not going to be confused. I don't care about her right now. She does not matter right now because this is cool. I just found a piece of toxic shame. I get to deal with it. Yay. How exciting is that? It's very exciting. Even though it's painful, even though you have to look into yourself, it's time consuming. It's a lot better to deal with it once so that all the Susie Q's in the future will not be pinging you. Dealing with it once and for all is much better than dealing with it with every Susie Q that offends you or every guy that you get with or whatever. Toxic shame overrides your intuition because you're reacting from this place of fake. It's not real. It's not your shame. It's not true. The truth is you are love, you are peace, you are joy, you are valuable, you are worthy. Anything contrary to that causes pain. And if you have no idea, then it really causes pain. It causes confusion. It knocks you off your rocker. And it can cause you not to pursue your goals in life. Toxic shame takes a lot of energy. It can cause you to become addicted, to numb yourself out. You know, you don't want to feel this toxic shame. It can cause you to blame people for things. It can cause you to start going into just entire stories. And even when I talk about toxic shame, because it's so icky, it for me, it really shows up like in my stomach area. Sometimes it's just, you feel where it is in your body so you can catch it. And ask for it to come up and say, show me where this toxic shame is so that I can deal with it. But sometimes it's so much that it's overwhelming. But if you have dysfunction in your life, I'm finding that it can be associated with this toxic shame. If you've been traumatized, if you're overcoming childhood trauma. So what else? How many do I have here? It creates stress, toxic shame. It creates fight or flight in your body. You just want to run, and you're running from something small. It causes you to be deeply hurt, shrink, be overly, friendly, nice. Just do anything you can to feel better. Okay? So that, I think I got 30 there. Did I give you 30? I hope I did for the number of people out there. I just wanted y'all to know there's a lot. There's a lot of things that toxic shame can do to you today to harm your life. And so there's no time like the present to begin to allow the shame to exist, recognize it, catch ourselves, remind ourselves that it is 2023. We are not little. We're not helpless. We have resources. And just begin revising your self-talk, renegotiating your self-talk in your own mind, and call this stuff out and change it from the lie. Convince your mind, okay, this is a lie, and I don't have to believe it anymore. And Susie Q is just a little piece of this. What she told me does not have anything to do with all this other stuff that's coming up for me in this conversation. And then perhaps you can set a boundary, and then perhaps you can assert yourself. And then perhaps once you've dealt with your own shame, you can make decisions that are more in line with your progress and connection. It's a work in progress, and we are here together. So tell me about if you can think of any other ways that toxic shame negatively impacts your life today, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if this is really enlightening to you, the patterns of your relationships that are happening over and over again negatively. If you can understand that you're really just repeating the wound over and over again. And it's your job as the adult in your life to take care of yourself and be there for yourself and start to recognize the wounding and begin to do things to heal. Healing involves yoga, walking, petting your dog, artwork, painting, beautiful music, self-care, cooking good food, spending time with loved ones, clearing your life of toxic people, making a peaceful atmosphere for yourself, decorating your home. Those are the things, the self-care, that will help to ameliorate your toxic shame, and then work on the skills, because it's a lack of skills. So if you're being triggered with your toxic shame in ordinary conversations, then you're going to need some skills to express to others when you're hurt, and then to assert yourself and overcome it, rather than run and hide and cower and hate them and, talk about them, gossip about them, complain about them, be hurt. It's good to talk to someone. It's good to talk to people who are healing, who are supportive. And so you've got to have your people. However, the people you have around you can actually further the cycle if they're not helping you and pointing you to the direct original wound. Deal with the original wound. And that is what my advice is, and that's what I'm working on, and I hope you guys work on it too. And until next time, my name is Jenna Ryan, and I will talk to you soon.